And it looks like we're live. So OpenFlip Week 3 intentional content with Raquel Landa here. And this is the morning edition, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every week for the next few weeks. We also have the evening edition tomorrow at 7 p.m. And it looks like we're going to do a Spanish version by request. I'll let Raquel introduce herself, and I'll jump over to Twitter and answer a couple questions here. Go ahead, Raquel.
Okay, thank you. Well, hi, everyone. I am, just like Ken just said, Raquel Landa. I'm a teacher at Tecnológico de Monterrey, Campus Monterrey, and I have been doing this flipping thing since 2013 is when I started. And well, I have a few years of experience, and I'm happy to share what I have learned so far with you.
Excellent. So I'm going to bring up some questions because we actually got a few questions come in from Luis. The topic this week is intentional content. And I've thought a lot about this, and I tend to think about this every year as I reorganize my curriculum and outline for my courses. And let's see, Raquel's teaching computing like me. But let's say Luis Miguel is asking, make coffee, prepare your questions. Anyone wants to send their questions, they should send it to OpenFlip or Flip Class. And the question is, en matemáticas importan las habilidades, pero ¿cómo no sacrificar la formalidad al hacer OpenFlip en la licenciatura? And so in math, abilities are important, but how do we not sacrifice the formality of in OpenFlip in undergraduate teaching? So maybe you can comment on that.
Actually, last year I started with a new class that is numerical methods for engineers. So it's basically math, okay? And I found that worked better than even in computing and programming, because since what you want is the students to practice, the methods are already there. And for me, it's just the same or even better that they have the chance to look at that before. But talking about intentional content, I know we have 4 pillars for the Flip Classroom, but for me, this is it, the intentional content. Be able to decide what they learn or at least watch before the class, and be very conscious of the things you have to do in the classroom. I have found that that is the key part, at least in exactly math classes. The exercise they are able to do. I had like a teacher that I was trying to help him to implement Flip Classroom, and I was like, it was kind of, I don't know the word, but fun for me when he told me, well, with this thing you want me to do, I am just going to do 1 or 2 problems in the class. And with my method, when I explain them in the classroom, I do 6 of them. And the answer was, okay, you just told me, you do 6 problems. They don't do any problems, so they don't practice. With this method, they will do 2 of them, but on their own, so they will learn it. So I am not very sure what he means by formality, but we get to, at the end of the semester, in this class, we have, I told you about this numerical method. We teach 1 method per class. So it's very much, a lot of material, and we get to the objectives. Students learn the things, they practice. They think it's a very easygoing way on how to learn math. And the grades speak by themselves.
Great. That's a good point. What I found with intentional content is I'm reviewing my assignments every year. I don't tend to take like the Blackboard copy paste re-import and that's my course again. Although I found out that the tech were doing that for me without me knowing, and my course was loaded with a bunch of material from someone else's class. I tend to create a new instance. I don't use Blackboard now. I use WordPress, but I create a new empty instance. And if I'm going to copy over homework assignments, I do a conscious effort of actually having to copy paste it over and update the post every time I post an assignment that's in my course. So I'm in the middle of that right now. And I think there's a disadvantages and advantages, because before I would have all of my homework assignments ready at the beginning of the semester, and I like that, and my students like that, but I'm always wanting to change things as the semester goes along. So I'm really reflecting a lot on how I'm using my assignments. Let's see, Luis also asks, which force can we apply to start learning motion? Oh, that's a good physics metaphor there, instead of assessment. So we look for a meaningful one. So how do we get students to actually do work if we're not necessarily grading everything, and get away from the, is this worth points question in your classroom?
Okay, basically, we don't, sadly. Not at this point. What I can tell you, I tried that like the third time I implemented the flipped classroom, and especially with the videos, I left them as homework, and I explained them very carefully. Well, if you don't see the homework, it's like if in a traditional class, you're not in the classroom when the teacher is explaining, so you will have a hard time. Well, I did a lot of things to try to convince them to watch the videos, and they didn't, because they did not have a grade. So what I do now with the videos for all the classes, programming, networking, and numerical methods, is at the same time I use flipped classroom, I change the way I grade homeworks. I think in most of our classes, I don't know why, but that is how it is. Homeworks are not like the main percentage of the grade. So I have no problem in using a different method. And what I am doing right now is that homeworks are graded 0, 1, and 2. Kind of in a skills approach, okay?
Right, the OSU, outstanding, satisfactory, unsatisfactory.
Exactly. So 0, you didn't do it, you don't get the right to do anything else. And 1 is, well, you need to work again this homework, but you make the effort. And the students that usually do not submit homeworks are able to at least submit something, and I can know how far they go, or they went with the material. So it's easier for me to identify sooner the students that are struggling with the things. And the 2 is not necessarily 100. It's someone that has the idea of the topic, and it can have errors, but they are not important for what I am evaluating. That's talking about the homeworks, and
right.
that has helped a lot. And talking about the exams, well, I saw a post of your students in the classroom having an exam last week, I think,
Yeah,
and you were asking to get rid of the exams, right? The assessment, or at least the traditional way. Well, right. I agree with you, but unfortunately, well, all the things that has nothing to do with actual teaching won't let us do that. So talking about the exams, I cannot tell you anything. But yeah, with homeworks,
it's really interesting, because one thing that John and Aaron always says is you can't just take flipped class and do what John does or do what Aaron does. You have to create your own style, your own method. And what I'm doing now is 4 years after I started this journey and 20-something years into my teaching career. So you can't just take what someone's doing and replicate it directly. I think there's a lot of trust that needs to be built up, that students don't do the homework if it's not worth points, because they're waiting for the one that is worth points. And maybe my system where there are no points means I take that all away. There's no, okay, I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to do that one because it's worth points, because nothing's worth points now. So the other extreme is to make every single thing worth points. And I think that just drove me insane.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm just answering Luis Miguel here. What about, let me see, what else can I bring up questions? There's no questions coming in, but let me ask you, Raquel, how do you, when we think about what we want our students to do, what is the intent of our class and content? I remember being a student and talking to my teacher, because we used a grading curve, and I told her, I shouldn't help my colleagues. I shouldn't help my other students, because all I'm doing is I'm making my grade worse, right? And I never did that. Hey, Kate's coming in. I'll wait for a second to continue the question as soon as Kate jumps in. Hey, beep, 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 beep. She's linking in. She's connecting through the intertubes. I see Kate's picture. And I've got a question coming in from Luis. Maybe she can hear us. Oh, there she is.
Hi.
Good morning, Kate. This is Raquel. Raquel,
Hi.
Kate. Raquel.
Hello.
So I'll jump right in, Kate, and I'll let you introduce yourself in a sec, because I had something in my mind. How do we get students to, when we're thinking about intent of our classrooms, intent of content, and I was talking about motivating students to help each other, and my story that I told my university professor, it's not a good idea for me to help my colleagues because we're graded on a curve, and that will lower my mark. So how do we get students to help each other in the classroom and incentivize that? Boom. Welcome, Kate.
Hi.
What do you think about that, dear?
Let's see. Well, first off, it's the whole notion of grades to begin with. If you're valuing the evaluation over the actual learning itself, well then, no, everybody be in a little bubble, and therefore no talking to each other. But I mean, it goes back to our conversation before about last week about learning culture. So it's really about what are the objectives of that classroom or of that department or of that whole area. Like, are you focused on great learning for the sake of great learning? Because I'm going to use the hashtag better together. Like, that's dumb. That's it. That's all I'm saying is dumb.
Shout out to Andrew and Cheryl. Better together.
No, because really everything is about interaction. So to say not helping your colleagues out, that just contributes to a lack of learning culture, to a lack of.
And I think that even happens to us as faculty.
Yeah, that's just stupid.
Even faculty is like, is this worth points on my evaluation of my job? Well, then I won't do it.
Yeah.
So we'll admit we do that as well. I don't, but.
Obviously you don't.
No. I was focused on doing things, and I never bothered applying for being classified as a professor. 20 years later, I finally got around to it, and they gave me associate professor, even though I applied for a lower rank. But I like to focus on the learning, so that's natural for me, and I don't think that's natural for students. And that's why they play this game. And I was talking to Raquel about how John and Aaron says you can't just apply what we do or a copy-paste of Kate Baker's Flip Learning or Ken or Raquel. You have to find your own way, and this is a longer journey of gaining trust with your students, I think. How do you see that, Kate, with like year to year? Do your students know this is a Mrs. Baker class?
Well, we always have to start off the beginning of the year with that kind of talk of like, well, how do we do what we do in here? And then just constant reinforcement, especially with like 9th grade honors. I hear so often like, will this be graded? Will this be graded? And then I have to constantly reinforce with them like the value is not in the grade itself. And the biggest analogy that I found that works with making my students understand this concept is liking it to sports and athletics. Like you do the practice to get better at the at the game. Like I have swimmers, so my swimmers can't just say, well, in tomorrow's meet I'm gonna break a minute in the 100 free. Okay, you're not going to inherently just automatically do that.
Because I read a book about it and I listened to Kate talk about it.
Yeah, like you need to do some training. You need to do some practicing. You need to work hard in practice and get sore in practice. And then as I prepare you for meet day, then on the day of the meet, it's going to be up to you to do that performance. But if you don't do that intermediary step of the process, you're not going to achieve the goal. And it's the same thing with learning. We're so focused on the goal, or this symbol of the goal of the grade, that we forget, no, it's about the process. That's really where the focus needs to be, because the grades are relevant if the process didn't occur.
Right. And even taking it further, I'll let Raquel jump in again, but it just reminded me where my colleague Yolanda Cham was getting upset at her students. And it's not just the process, it's the understanding. I mean, there's a process of learning, not the process of I'm applying the rules of mathematics for solving Pythagoras or whatever the heck we're working on this morning. But just knowing how to apply a process is, I can teach a chimpanzee to do that sometimes. I want to know that you really understand. And Raquel, we were jumping over top of you there. I'll let you jump back in. I'm busy on the Twitters here. Woo. I'm working on a Spanish version of the OpenFlip fireside chat for tomorrow evening, because I've got requests that, but I want to do it in Spanish because I'm embarrassed about my English, and we have at least a 50-50 mix of English and Spanish in this course. So we're going to do OpenFlip in Spanish tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m. Central, for those that want to join.
Cool.
Raquel? She's going to have to leave pretty soon, so I want to get as much out of Raquel as I can before she leaves to class.
Well, okay, I totally agree with you talking about the grade. I want to share something that I found on the analyzing the data that I have. First of all, it's like we have to understand also the students, because if we said grades are not important, but we keep assigning them and we keep sending those to their parents every single month. Well, it's not like we are not being consistent on what we're telling them and what we're doing, right? And what I found when I analyzed the data is that obviously if they practice more, grades will be better. But I asked them at the end of the semester a set of questions talking about their satisfaction with the class. And I asked them, well, did you like flipped classroom? 80% said yes. Did it?
Oh, I think we lost Raquel. You still there, Kate?
Okay. What would you like?
No, keep going, Raquel.
What would you like
I lost you for a second.
with the time in the classroom?
Oh, our internet's bumping. I hope it's not mine.
You're presented with a new beverage, and it's healthier.
Yeah, I think Raquel's dropping in and out. Last week it was me, or it was the week before, when I had my VPN up by accident still.
Yeah, she's frozen to me.
She's totally frozen.
Yeah, you've been fine. I've been okay.
Sorry, Raquel. We'll get you on again. She's going to head to class here at 10:30 as well.
Oh, so cool.
I'm getting a conversation going on with Carolina in Colombia, who was tagging you yesterday, Kate.
Oh, good.
Check in. So shout out to Carolina, who's always interacting. Perdón, Raquel. You're like, your internet's up and down and up and down, and you're refrozen again. So I'll continue on here with Kate. I think you answered the question that Luis had earlier. You said this is a great question about his play on words of which force can we apply to start learning motion instead of assessment.
Yeah, so really, if we're going to say the focus is on student and student learning, so then we need to allow their voice to be heard within the classroom. So if the only way to motivate, really, it's about passion. It's about student interest. It can't just seem to be, this curriculum that is imposed on the classroom. I mean, as much as we have to have, I go back to Hirsch and his, basics of common knowledge that we all need to have. But at the same time, there's something to be said about intrinsic motivation and saying, well, I really have a strong desire to learn about this. Give me the freedom and the space to go do it. We can still assess skills, but allow me to pick topics maybe that could work. I mean, really what that requires, too, is just a radical redesign of the classroom, that you're not starting with the curriculum, you're starting with skills and with student choice.
So I don't have other questions coming, but I'm going to ask you something. Oh, I thought something was coming in from Audrey, but no. So let me ask you, Kate, because what are you doing that's new this year?
Am I doing new?
Crazy newness in your classroom.
A couple of things. Well, for once, I have the Chromebook. Okay, let me start over. So my district is a BYOD district. Students are allowed to bring their personal devices. We have a very strong Wi-Fi network. The kinks have been worked out of that in past years. And then we also have Chromebook carts. The carts are housed in like a home-based classroom. And then while the teacher that is in that classroom can use the cart whenever he or she wants, the cart's able to be shared periodically with others. So this is the first year like the cart has lived in my room, and I'm not obligated to share it with others necessarily. Like in past, it was Monday was always my day, and then Tuesday was another teacher's day. Wednesday was a different teacher's day. So the cart was shared. I always
had a schedule around the cart.
Yes, but there was the schedule. So this year there was no schedule. So it's been a lot of fun to be one-to-one with the Chromebooks. So it's that balance of paper and digital. So some new tools. We love Kahoot, which isn't that new, but being able to use it to reinforce skills is fun. My kids get really excited about Kahoot. They're up out of their seats yelling and screaming. And we're also doing a shout-out to GrammarFlip. Your website, which is there's about 54 different grammar lessons, really nice for flipped learning. And what it does is you have a short 3-minute video of the lesson, and then you have a 10-question multiple choice check for understanding, and then you have a writing task to do with it where you demonstrate and apply the skills that you learn. So I've been really pleased with that. The students have done really well expanding their writing with, just kind of practicing some of the grammar concepts. And then it's just the usual stuff in 9th grade. We're still reading and writing various texts. So nothing like crazy, just more of being able to, now that we have the tool in the classroom, the Chromebooks, letting me figure out ways to further flip and to further digitize our learning.
Oh, here we go. I got a question. Amy Alvis is writing in. Great. She says she's enjoying the recordings as well. I guess she's watching live. We have 4 viewers. Oh my goodness, it's my record. So Amy Alvis asks, what suggestions would you give to an elementary teacher trying to flip? I know she asked if we can get an elementary teacher on, and I'd love to have an elementary teacher on, but my contacts are pretty much higher ed and high school, middle school. I need to reach out to some people.
I know, I'd have to do some investigating for elementary.
Yeah, I think I have to too. Ooh, we need to talk to some of our flip conference colleagues there.
Well, I mean, it really isn't any different than any other level. Organization ahead of time, map out your stuff ahead of time, make sure you have all the tools that you're able to use with the students, and then just being very structured and organized with what you're doing prior to initiating it. And I would say start small, like flip 1 lesson, then flip like a unit, and then just gradually expand it to flipping for the entire year.
I think that brings up a good point that I think a lot of people, when I'm doing a lot of PD with teachers, they say, oh, it's easy to flip X, but I do Y, and it's harder, and it's this special snowflake theory that I have. But I think a lot of it's the same across the way I work with teachers in PD or university education or high school. So I think you got a really good point there. Raquel, can we hear you? Maybe I'll let you get something in before you take off.
Hello.
No, Raquel's still unfrozen.
Oh, I thought she was unfrozen. I guess not.
We'll go to Miguel. Miguel, good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Excellent.
Sorry I'm late.
Before.
No meetings are just time-consuming.
So, what are your thoughts?
Sorry.
This week's
what are you talking
topic?
About today? Huh?
So we're talking about intentional content and our choice of what to assign students to work on, and then it kind of branched out to what students decide to work on, as well as the kind of, is this worth points? Should I do it? Type of thing. What's your thoughts there?
Well, I don't know if I'm really into the topic, but I have learned in my short experience trying to flip that sometimes we learn from the students and an activity that was not meant to be like that, certain topic, the students give you feedback or they suggest, why don't we do this way or that way? And it turns out to be even better than what you had planned.
Mm-hmm.
So I always keep on mentioning about improvising. As for me, I think it's one of the best tools or things I keep in mind. I don't want to be very rigid in the sense that I don't give students a chance to suggest new ways, but maybe I need more order as well.
Great.
So
Were
for
you
me,
on earlier with Miguel, Kate? No, I can't remember. It's all blending together. Miguel's taking the course. You're muted. Kate's muted.
Yeah. I think yeah, last week, right, Miguel? You were on last week, or was it the week before?
yeah, I was here yes last week.
It was all blurring to me. Yeah, it's great to have people join in the conversation that are taking the course as well as our flip experts like Kate.
I'm not an expert.
I was putting that in air quotes, and I like to avoid that, but I think a lot of people like it. They like to hear people who have a lot of experience. I'm not to not use the word expert too much, but I think a lot of people really like to just listen to other people. So I'm balancing as well with my PD different learning styles, although I don't like to use that word either.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice also to have Brian. He's not joining us today, but Brian's like a flip expert, and he's been around for a long time, and he's taking the course and making a conscious effort, an intentional effort to reflect again on his process, which has been really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Right now I'm in the middle of grad class for my master's in instructional technology, and we're in the research capstone phase. So I'm like, oh, take another class on top of that after coaching is ended. Like,
yeah, this can be draining.
It's not happening today.
But I found these types of CMOOC courses are just nice to do.
Mm-hmm.
I try to join more of them myself, but I keep running them instead of joining them. We've got Carolina listening to us, and Raquel's apologizing for her bad, crazy internet. And that's all for questions today. You have any thoughts on your process so far, Miguel, before we let you both go today? And another quick announcement, Miguel and anyone who wants to join, tomorrow evening we're going to do the Spanish version of the OpenFlip Hangout. So you get to listen and laugh at my Spanish, 7:30 p.m. Mexico Central Time. Any thoughts from you, Miguel, from this week, your progress?
This week and last week I've been very busy. It's partial
exams
here in Tech. But I was thinking to myself, well, if this is a course about flipping, I think I will not mind if I catch up at the end of this week with all the work I didn't do. I mean, I like it very much. I think just by listening to the experts, as you say, gives me a very good insight and encourages me to continue trying to flip. I say trying because I realize I need to learn a lot still. It's complicated sometimes to allocate some time for these kind of activities, take a course online and so on, but I guess that we are learning. It's been a very enjoyable experience for me. I think for others as well. I'm just thinking that maybe it should be a compulsory course in tech with all these things. All these things.
It's funny because the tech asked me to offer this nationally, and they said next week. This was in November, and I said, well, I can't do it next week. Let's organize ahead of time and kick it off in January. And then they never promoted it, so I don't know what happened there. But I like the size of group we have now, so it's been good. But I'm going to do this again in the summer. Shout out to Delia Bush from Bennett as well. Said that Amy should definitely. That's who I was trying to think, but I was blocking on your name, Delia. I remember I watched her presentation at FlipCon a couple of years ago and really loved her talk about what she's doing. So Amy should definitely reach out to Delia. It's there on the Twitters. So I'm about out of time, and anything else you want to wrap up with, Kate? I thank you again for joining us often. It's great to have you here.
Well, Brian Bennett, I just saw on his tweet about mentioning digitizing the learning. Is it important in flipping? Well, it is, but it isn't. Like, you have to understand, too, that my struggle the past 4 or 5 years has been trying to do digital things and then having and then not being able to do it because of infrastructure problems.
Mm-hmm. It's Digital Learning Day today.
Yeah, so part of it is about my own exploration with this, and part of it too is I like the digital stuff, and frankly, like you saw my blog post the other week about stomach bugs and stupid papers, like, mm-hmm. And I didn't even bring up freshman boys' handwriting, so. Digital learning does help it to make it be more accessible for us. Is it mandatory? Absolutely not. No. You can flip with paper, as with any kind of, I don't want to say style of learning, but learning can take place in any modality. It doesn't have to be paper. It doesn't have to be digital. I'm just enjoying playing with the new toys of having the opportunity to play in the digital realm. So.
Anything to add on close, Miguel? I'm putting a thumb mark on what just Kate said.
I agree with Kate. I feel really, really lucky to be here with you. I'm like a student with 2 teachers, experts in the field of flipping. I just got very impressed with your exam that you shared yesterday, the completely Creative Commons license and all completely open course. I love it. I want to, as we say in Mexico, when I'm a grown-up, I want to be like you, Ken.
I love using that in my talks because there's so many people I say, I want to be like Kate Baker when I grow up.
Oh, no, I want to be like Ken Bauer.
I'm putting a thumb on Kate's point about what you were just making, that learning social. And for me, technology, that it's Digital Learning Day today, is one thing I've noticed a lot is having interaction with my students electronically through digital medium and social media. I get a lot of people that come basically out of the introvert closet. Yes. Because it really helps them. We talked about this last year where I have students that are just, definitely introverts, Asperger's, and they come out of their shell when they're online. And so it doesn't have to be necessary, but it really does help for me to reach out to my students, and education definitely is social. So I'll wrap up, and I'll thank Miguel, I'll thank Raquel. Raquel's doing her PhD dissertation on Flip Class, and that's a long story. I just was talking to her about it. She's working on getting that going, so I'm looking forward to see her work there. And I want to do some publishing on my data that I've gathered, but I'm just too lazy and don't publish. Maybe that's why I didn't finish my PhD. Thanks for the coffee chat, everyone, and tomorrow evening en español, OpenFlip en español, mañana en la tarde, 7:30 hora local en Mexico, and I hope we have some of you there. If anyone wants to join, let me know. All right, thanks again, and I'll close up this morning's chat. Thanks a lot, everyone.